Hello everybody, welcome back to Screen Stars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2020 horror film Anything for Jackson. A film that is directed by Justin G. Dyke and it stars Sheila McCarthy, Julian Richings, Konstantina Mantalos and Josh Krudas. Now this film focuses on an elderly couple who are bereaving the loss of their daughter and grandson, Jackson. They also happen to be Satanists, and they decide to kidnap a heavily pregnant woman in the hope that they can, through the use of a book that they have tracked down, use an ancient spell to put their dead grandson's spirit into the unborn child. As you could imagine, it's not a plan that goes particularly according to plan. Right, what are my thoughts on Anything for Jackson? Well, I'd not heard of this film until very recently. It's streaming on Shudder, and I think Shudder, generally speaking, put out some pretty good horror films, and this is no exception. I must admit, I thought this for the most part was an excellent horror film, with some really terrifying and disturbing visuals and some really impressive tension-filled scenes and very shocking scenes that I thought was a very, very effective film. Now, the concept here is sound. You get this seemingly ordinary elderly couple that do this extraordinary thing, or try and do this extraordinary thing, and the things that people will do for love and grief, it beggars belief, really. So you can't knock their intentions, I guess, in a film like this, but the execution's terrible, really, and it's also quite comical. The fact that these pillars of society, he's the local doctor, basically, Julian Richings' character, well-respected GP in the local community, and you see them in one scene just go along to the local community Satanist meeting group, and it's quite comical at times, even though it's not trying to be. The fact that this could just be going on in this quiet, American town, really. It was a nicely constructed, put together film with two very strong leads. Sheila McCarthy and Julian Richings are really, really good in the leads here, of these grieving grandparents stroke parents, and they feel very, very committed in what they're doing. Julian Richings is an excellent actor anyway, and if you do, you'll recognise his face from many things. He's been Death in Supernatural, for example, but he's done a lot of things over the years. But other than the strong performances, and there are a lot of strong performances here, the slow burn and the really horrific visuals that it gives now and again of the things that they're doing and how it goes wrong, and then they are kind of haunted by their mistakes as the film is progressing on, and the house essentially is unclean by that point on. I mean, they're constantly being pestered by these spirits and things as it goes on, and they realise at some point in the film that they're out of their depth here, and they bring on another Satanist, Ian, played by Josh Krudas, who they think is going to help them, but in actual fact he just makes things far, far worse. So it builds to this crescendo of horror by the end, and all the visuals and all the horrific things that we've been seeing leading up to the ending, they're all kind of thrust at you at one point. So it can get a little bit overwhelming, the ending, and it felt a little bit rushed, like they didn't really have a definitive idea of how they can end this film, because it felt quite an unsatisfying ending to me, and it didn't feel finished, if I'm being perfectly honest. And there's some time jumping in the film that it can lead to it being a little bit confusing now and again. So it's not perfect. I'm not sure the pacing will please everybody, but there is definitely some shocking scenes. There's 2 or 3 times in this film where you will be open-jawed at some of the things that you see in it. It's very, very effective in that approach, definitely. And just the concept as well is really good, because you know, anybody who's been a parent, or anybody who's lost someone that they love, you know, while you might obviously not do what they do in this film, you can relate, you know, and the fact that you want to do anything to bring them back, I'm sure. So it taps into that primal, you know, human thing, you know, when someone's grieving and they've had great loss in their life, and what the lengths you would go to get that person back. So it tells that really, really well. It's quite an enclosed film. The main characters here are obviously just the two grandparents and the pregnant woman in the bed, played by Konstantina Mantalos, and her desperation of trying to get away, trying to reason with her captors, trying to understand what's going on. She does really, really well. And the only other characters really to speak of here are the police detective who is searching for this missing pregnant woman, who pops up occasionally in the film, and Josh Cruddas, like I say, who is a fellow Satanist that they call upon to help them in the situation, because they feel like they're out of their depth, which they certainly are. And there's a couple of other characters in there, but it's not a film littered with characters. It's quite an enclosed film. It feels like quite a character piece at times, but the horror for me feels far more effective at that, because they're not trying to tell too many stories at once. They're just laser focused on this one story of these two grieving grandparents. So yeah, I thought it was really quite effective. I don't think it's perfect. I think it could have been a little bit better. Like I say, I thought the ending was a little bit rushed and a little bit inconclusive to me, but I'm going to give this one a 7.5 out of 10. I did enjoy it, definitely, and I think horror fans out there, you will enjoy it too. So that is my review for Anything for Jackson. Thank you very much for watching, and of course I will be back with more content and reviews on Screen Stars very, very soon.